This is the Catch a Break podcast, the insider's guide to breaking into and navigating the entertainment industry. I'm Julie Harris Walker. You can find us at catchabreakpodcast.com and all the social media at Catch a Break Pod, as well as all the podcast places. The presenting sponsor of Season 3 of Catch a Break is Revolution Entertainment Services, bringing digital accounting and payroll solutions to the production community. Find them at www.revolutiones.com. Catch a Break is also sponsored by Cliché. Cliché is proud to introduce Cliché Pay, the no-touch, all-digital, pays-you-back AP system you've been waiting for. And finally, we are sponsored by Orlando's Motion Picture Catering, who has been feeding Hollywood since 2015. In this season, we're going to be talking with different groupings of crew members. We want to do a deep dive on all the different positions and understand how they all work together. For this last episode, we're digging into the age-old Hollywood cliché, but what I really want to do is direct with a few people who have made the leap from other crew positions. Here we go. Let me introduce our guests. Anya Adams is an award-winning director, most recently taking home the NAACP Image Award for Best Director in Comedy for 2020. Anya's career skyrocketed after directing an episode of Blackish in 2017. Since then, she has gone on to direct The Expanse, Ginny in Georgia, episodes of The Good Place, Single Parents, Glow, Charmed, Fresh Off the Boat, Speechless, Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, and many more. She also co-hosts a Sister Brunch podcast. Welcome, Anya.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here.
So you're directing from sci-fi to musicals, like all the things. That's amazing.
Yes, I have, and I love it. It makes me very happy.
Okay, we also have Avi Youabian is a Persian filmmaker born in Tehran. He and his parents fled to the U.S. during the Iran-Iraq War. Moving to Los Angeles, he quickly developed an obsession with making short films with his younger brother. Avi directed the award-winning digital series Tainted Love, which is recognized by Variety as one of the top 10 digital series of 2013. In 2018, Avi earned an Emmy nomination for directing and producing The Walking Dead: Red Machete. Other directing credits include Another Life, All American, Magnum P.I., Batwoman, MacGyver, Supergirl, just to name a few, and we should say the most recent versions of all those shows. And Avi graduated from University of Southern California with a degree in cinema television. Welcome, Avi.
Thank you for having me.
We're so glad you're here. Kristin Burke, who is a writer, director, and costume designer, educated at Northwestern with majors in both radio, television, film, and French studies. She was awarded a fellowship in the Warner Brothers Emerging Film Directors Workshop, where she was given $100,000 to create a short film for the studio. Her film, which she wrote and directed, is entitled Urban Myth Nest, and she's currently finishing a documentary called This Is Why We Walk. She has designed costumes for over 50 feature films, including The Conjuring 2, Seasons 1 and 2 of Sleepy Hollow, Insidious, Running Scared, The Cooler, and The Slaughter Rule. Kristin has also authored several books about costuming and Hollywood and also founded the nonprofit Second Families to assist newly arrived refugees in Southern California. Welcome, Kristin, and is there anything you don't do?
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here in such august company. Thank you very much.
So the first thing we like to do in this show is I'm going to ask you what was your very first job in the business and how did you get it? Because we know everyone has a completely different path and we want to hear yours. And then after telling the first job, if you could tell what career you had before you became a director or what career you still have while directing, however it has worked out. I'm going to start with you, Kristin. What was your very first job?
My very first job in the industry was as an assistant production coordinator on the movie Hudson Hawk. I was an intern, unpaid, still in college, and I was booking people's travel, copying paychecks, faxing them all over the world because we were shooting in Rome and Budapest and a bunch of other places. So yeah, working on the Warner Brothers lot. So that's been my home ever since, really.
How did you get that job?
Well, I'm a hustler, baby. So, I think probably all of us here on this podcast are hustlers because there's no other way to do it. But, I sent out 1 million resumes and then I came to LA during a spring break and I shook hands and, one thing led to another and I just hustled my way into the job. It's a hallmark of my whole career.
And then somewhere along the way, you became a costume designer.
Right. So I was working as an intern in the production office on Hudson Hawk. And I spoke with the editor, Chris Lebenson, who still is working now. And he said, oh, I know you're in college. What is it that you want to do? And I said, I want to write it direct. And long silence. And he was like, we're not there yet. So let me give you some advice, if I may. And I said, sure. He said, find something you'd like to do until you can figure out how to direct. And I met the costume designer on that show, a very, very famous woman named Marilyn Vance, who had done Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Pretty in Pink. And she took one look at me and she was like, you, come work with me. So I left there, I started working with Marilyn. They paid me, so I wasn't unpaid intern anymore. And I was shopping for Bruce Willis's underpants. So it was kind of an auspicious start.
Amazing. So when he said we're not there yet, did he mean you're not ready to be a director, or we aren't letting girls direct yet?
We aren't letting girls direct yet. And it was that was 1990. So it was like Penny Marshall and Betty Thomas were directing, and that was about it. And they had huge careers before they even got a chance to direct. So when he said that to me, it took me aback because, I was raised in a strong feminist environment with my mom saying like, basically go get it, do whatever you want, be who you want to be, you can do it. And the fact is I could do it. I had been making short films and they'd been going to festivals and doing really well. And like, I knew I could do it, but the system, you know what I mean? So it was, that was a little shocking.
Interesting. So you had a huge career as a costumer.
Costume designer. Yeah.
That's great. Okay. Avi, let's talk to you. What was the very first job and how'd you get it?
I was on the Sony lot interning and then ran into a AD who was working on the movie Hollow Man. I just went up to him and asked him, hey, heard you guys are looking for a PA. And sure enough, they were. He put his hands on me. He's like, don't move. He used his walkie-talkie. He's like, I found that PA we were looking for. It was like so random. And worked on the movie for like 2 months and watched him make that film. It was so much fun.
Wait, did you know he was looking for a PA or you just took a chance?
I just literally took a chance. And then that's literally the same day I walked back to the internship and I'm like, I need to leave. I'm gone. Bye. I just didn't even want to tell them why. I was scared they'd see me on the stages or something again. And yeah, that was the very first time I was on set and I got bit by the bug and I knew I had to direct.
And then did you work as an editor?
I did. That was like, I want to say like right out of college, but then I transitioned to an editor. That is where my career sort of bloomed over the years. That's where it started. And really, I think the best film school for me was in the cutting room.
Okay, we're going to talk about that more. Okay, Anya, what was your very first job and how did you get it?
I came here unconventionally because like I went to school for psychology and wanted to break in and had no contacts in the industry at all. So I applied for the DGA trainee program. And my first job on a set, I had no experience, just like Avi, like I never set foot, but I got into the training program and my first show was Malcolm in the Middle. And I was in charge of base camp, and base camp is all the actors, getting them ready to go to set. So making sure everything happens. So that was my first job.
And then weren't you an AD for a long time?
Yeah. So the DGA trainee program actually trains you to be an assistant director, which is really what I thought I wanted to be when I got in the industry. I came from a nonprofit where I was a producer. And so I thought that was my calling. So I spent a long time as an AD. I kind of grew up in that world, CSI Miami, a bunch of different shows. And then I kind of was like trying to figure out where do I want to go from here, because I don't want to be a producer. I don't want to be a unit production manager. I don't want to be in the office. I like creating. I like the creative part of ADing. And so I was like, okay, I want to direct. So I was on a TV show called The Mindy Project as the first AD when I kind of decided that's where I want to make my transition. And so I asked Mindy Kaling if she would give me an episode to direct. And she said, sure, what have you done? And I said, very good question. I haven't done shit. So
what have you done?
I need to figure that out. So it was a good shot in the butt. Yeah.
So then I think you went off and directed a short.
Yes. From there, what happened was I was on Mindy. My friend was starting up on Blackish. She said, we want you to come over and be the first AD on Blackish. And I was like, great, I'll come over. Will you guys consider me to direct? Oh yeah, we'll totally consider you. Come on over. So I go there, and while I was there, I got very close with some of the cast, and Marseille Martin and her family became friends of mine. And so I pitched them an idea for a short film. They liked it. We did it on a weekend, like, 18 hours, and then, cut it together. And I literally really did it for Kenya Barris to see, to show him that I could do it. And so he saw it, and he agreed to give me an episode.
Okay, so that became your calling card.
Yes, yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
All right, Kristin, what made you think that you could direct? And then how did you get that first job?
When I was in college, I was a film major, and I was one of 3 girls in the directing kind of program, the kind of directing arm of it. So I've been making movies for a long time, and most of my stuff that I was doing was experimental shorts. I really like sort of visual poetry and music and telling stories in an unconventional way. So I knew that, and then I also directed a TV show. Northwestern has an incredible film and television program. So all the facilities were good. We were really pushed to our limits and had a lot of experience at that time, which was great. So I knew that I could do it. I think that with any kind of storytelling, I like to write and I like to tell stories over a campfire, over a glass of wine. But learning to, on set, watching masters do it helps you also realize, like, here are some good things to do, and here are some things you never, ever, ever, ever want to do. So I was very, very blessed to have like 25 years of shadowing directors on set, literally at the monitor every day, watching people do it. So when it came time for me to direct with the Warner Brothers program, it was very, very shockingly natural, Was
that the first time you did it? Did you apply to that program and that's how you got in?
Right. So I applied to the program. I didn't tell anybody because in my line of work, if somebody smells that you're wanting to leave, it spreads like wildfire and you'll never work again. So I didn't tell anybody that I applied. I made it through all the hoops. And once I finally got in, I don't think I stopped crying for 3 days because it finally felt like somebody saw me, like this had always been my aspiration, but I had to always keep it under wraps because of the jeopardy that it would have put my other career in. So when I got in, it was fine. It was this big, okay. And then I was able to sort of move forward and get to it.
So was it 30 years from the time someone told you we're not there yet?
Yep.
God, that's infuriating.
Well, it's 30. Yeah, it was 30 years. So I did Hudson Hawk in 1990. That was like when I came out and I was still in college. And now it's 2021. So that's 31 years later. I've got a lot of stuff in development. Everything is working. Everything's going crazy. So 30 years. But this is just more proof. It's like, don't give up on what you want to do. Like, this is why I'm here. And there was that epiphanic moment that I had, 5 or 6 years ago where everything's comfortable. I got a house, all the money's coming in, everything's working. And I'm like, why am I here again? This is not why I'm here. All this stuff is not why I'm here.
It is never too late. Never too late for the dream.
But it's also like cool that as an AD growing up in the business too, I feel like it is a great film school. Like you can navigate the waters, figure out, you were comfortable as a costume designer. So you were able to like look at everything and see where you wanted to go. Maybe it was longer than you wanted, but you also, nobody can put shit over you on set. Like as a director, you come in as a powerhouse because you know everything. Yep. And that's like, a lot of directors as a first AD that I worked with, they don't know everything, and they get pushed around and it's a lot harder.
Yeah. So. And the other thing is too, my job as a costume designer has been working with actors, developing characters. And that is so critical because so many people on set, like who works the closest with actors? Costume, hair and makeup, director. That's it. Really intimately to develop those characters. And particularly for us in costume, we see them in their underwear. They are super vulnerable. They're experimenting with us. And that is exactly what you need as a director. So I consider it film school with a stipend for 30 years.
Perfect. Okay, Avi.
Yes.
What took you to think, I'm going to direct? And then how'd you do it?
I always wanted to direct. Went to film school. And actually, by the end of high school, I started interning. I met Randall Kleiser, who some people may know. He directed the movie Grease and a slew of other great classic films. He said, hey, you're not going to direct at a film school, but you should get an internship because you got to get your foot in the door. And that's what I did. I was like, all right, I'll intern anywhere and everywhere I can and start figuring it out. And then years later, I was editing movies and TV shows and documentaries. And I finally went, I'm tired of living comfortably. Very similar to what Kristin just said. I was like, I have all the toys and I'm making good money, but why haven't I pushed harder? And I believe I had asked a few executives for the opportunity, and their question was, what have you directed? And my response was something in film school years ago, but I'm not willing to share that with you. But well, I got to take something back to the studio and the network to sort of, champion and try to sell you to them as well. It's not just my choice. So long story short, I called a few actor friends I had met through the editing career. And I called my favorite AD. And I called my favorite DP. And I called a bunch of people who I knew would just show up. And we went out and shot this really cool action web series that we were just going to go put online. The intent was just put it online. It'll serve as a director's reel for me. It'll serve as an actor's reel for this person, blah, blah, blah. And the DP will have something to show. And finally, I was on a series. I had been there for 3 years. They had all seen my web series. They knew I was interested in directing. And I pretty much begged them for an opportunity. And they were like, okay, cool. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't that easy, actually. I had to fight really hard. And then I finally got the
It sound like it was nothing. I just asked. Yeah.
The truth is I actually said yes. And they were like, well, maybe next year we'll have that conversation. And I just said, guys, I'm not coming back unless I get this opportunity. I love you, but another season of this show is not going to really propel the editing career forward. I'd be wasting another season. And God bless them. They gave me an editor an opportunity, and it helped open the door to another show and another show after that. And now I've gotten to a point where I'm fortunately busy working nonstop. And I was able to turn down work pre-COVID as far as editing work. I was like, I guess I'm not editing anymore because I'm working as a director now. This is cool. Yay.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, now talk a little bit about how being an editor prepared you to be a director.
Prep. It's something that I swear by. And people who have asked to shadow me or ask me about my transition, I tell them 90% of this job is prep. And then the other 10% allows you to just have fun on set every day. You show up with a plan, or at least you have a backup plan, and everyone just wants to go to battle and wants to go to war with you. Because that's what really it is. When you're on set, you're fighting the clock. From call to the end of the day, you're just looking at the clock and going, all right, how do I tell the best story today in the amount of time I have? And that's kind of been sort of my saving grace, showing up with incredible amount of prep work.
But how do you learn that as an editor?
Oh,
how was that manifested?
So I'm going to give you the long answer. My first directing job, I didn't have that skill set. I actually screwed up really bad, but I was fortunately in a place where a bunch of people covered for me. After that first opportunity, I realized, I need to log more hours on set so I am more efficient with the crew, with my DP. Learning the term block shooting was something I hadn't learned because I was spending years in the cutting room. So I actually ended up calling a bunch of producing directors I knew. I said, hey, I just directed this episode and I just directed this episode of television and I did this web series, which you saw years ago, but I just need to log more hours on set. So can I come and shadow you? And all of them were like, wow, you already got your opportunity. I'm like, yeah, but I have a feeling I'm going to learn more from you than I would from other directors. Also, I'm in between jobs. Let me just come and hang out. And it was just leaning on those producing directors who have just been on set forever. And I showed up like any other intern or shadower, pre-call, stayed till the end of wrap, did the homework. I ended up actually prepping the episodes as if I was directing this as well. And the amount of knowledge I learned from these separate directors was incredible. I can't tell you how many times I email them once a year to just thank them or tell them, hey, I just pulled this trick. I just tried this thing that you taught me back in the day. And again, it really just comes down to prep. Like that time while we, as you two know, like we spend prepping, looking at the schedule, looking at locations, looking at actor schedules and seeing their strengths or weaknesses. It's something that you learn by just doing it. And I feel like as an editor, I had no knowledge of that. Literally no knowledge whatsoever. I know what cuts together. I'm very efficient in how I shoot, in my style on set. I don't ever overshoot. I'll talk about that in depth later, but I think the editorial side may be a better storyteller, and it allows me to come up with it has allowed me to come up with a giant bag of Band-Aids so that when problems occur on set, I'm like, that's cool. Here's how we're going to do it. Or I'm never going to see that within the frame. Let's just tighten up the lens. Or, all right, well, this is how much time we have left. Let's shoot this as a oneer, and this is how we're going to approach it. And those editorial Band-Aids have really helped me in the cutting room. And also when I get the edit on a particular episode, I'm very specific about what I want. And I don't mess around or waste the editor's time going, well, what if, let's try, how about I'm not saying I always have the right answer, but I'll just say, hey, this is what I want. Here's what I'd like to try. And sometimes I'll just plant the seed and go, okay, let's, do X, Y, and Z. But going back to your question about like being on set, it just took time. And I didn't have the luxury of observing other directors from the editor's chair. So I just made time to go learn from other directors.
I love that. Anya, let's talk about how being a first AD prepared you. And I love how you all come at this from a completely different perspective. That's so interesting.
I mean, definitely like Kristin, I will say, Avi, I'm so surprised because I made this assumption that all editors understood what happened on set. You get all this footage, you see what's going on. The other thing I'll say as a director, I love saying, well, what if we tried this? Like, I like the energy between an editor,
there's nothing wrong with that.
I know. It's just like so interesting because you can formulate beforehand. And I don't know, I find there's like a little bit of like this creative magic that happens in editing as well, where like I'm seeing your ideas and then I go, oh, what if I did this instead? I guess it's just so interesting to hear that from you.
That still happens all the time. I'll reach out to an editor and go, hey, this is really cool. And you've created an incredible amount of tension here. But what if we cross-cut these two scenes?
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't know exactly how they would do it. And I go,
yeah.
And what if we put a needle drop under this and take the sound, the production sound out, where we're just hearing the song? Would that be more emotional? Consider trying it. And then, at least your brain's in a way where you're like, oh, let me just try moving those Lego pieces around.
Yeah. I love that about post.
It is magic. Post is magic.
I think
you're absolutely right.
It's so fun. Like, I didn't think I would like post as much as I did because I was like, in a room on a couch with candy in front of me, watching somebody's back work. Like I was like, but I love it. I enjoy it. I'm so sorry. I forgot your question. Being an AD.
Yes.
I would say similar to Kristin, like, I mean, I'm in shadowing directors my entire career. All I do is my job was in service of facilitating the environment for the director. So I have worked with directors that were good with the crew and bad with the crew and been able to pull those, like, the stuff I liked and the stuff I didn't. Obviously seeing, when a director is prepared and when they're not. I also get to work with the actors. So, being able to talk to them about upcoming issues is not something I'm afraid of. A lot of times directors that I worked with were concerned about approaching actors because one, they didn't know how to talk to them or they were afraid of it or whatever. I don't have that because I'm used to like, we got to do this and then this, like this is, how do we all got to do this. How do we do this the best together? I don't have any kind of fear of that, which is great. I'm able to step onto a set and understand what people do. I think as a woman in the industry doing, that's really important. I've worked with women that weren't able to do that, and it was such a horrible experience for them, which made me feel bad. But I mean, it's kind of the nature of what it was like coming up anyway. But it does give me a certain level of confidence, just knowing what I need to do, who I need to ask for what thing, how to talk to the different departments, all that kind of stuff. Being an AD definitely helped me. And it's an incredible place to be because you're driving the set. So you understand time, which is something that producers, especially in television, whenever I tell them I was an AD, they're like, oh, great, you're an AD, you understand, because everyone's concerned, like Avi was saying, about the battle of time and how do we get the most out of our day. So those are some of the things I definitely learned.
So all the logistics, top notch.
Yes.
How did you learn talking to actors about the acting?
I'm a very instinctual director. So for me, if I block out a scene, I try to think about the scene, what feels natural, and then also work with the actors. I like to collaborate. I'm not very much of a, like, you stand here, unless we have 2 minutes, which there is video of me like moving a kid, like, you gotta stand here and we gotta do that. But normally I'm like, okay, this is what I was thinking. Like Avi was saying, that whole idea of prep, you think about the scene. How do you want to shoot it? How do you think it should be blocked? You go in there and then somebody says, no, I would never do that. And you're like, okay, great. How would you do it? And then you're like figuring out in your mind, okay, I think a big part of talking to actors is listening to them. Also, if you have any friends that have worked with them before, if you're concerned, you might shoot them a call so you understand. Always trying to make a connection with them on some level outside of the show, like outside of what you're doing, not meaning like doing it outside of working on the show. But, if you're able to like talk about I don't know, Lucy's barbecue or whatever, just having a connection with somebody often helps them receive things from you. And then there's some actors that are just like, fuck you. I know what I'm doing. I've been here way longer than you, or I've been here shorter than you, but I'm huge. And then you're just like, okay, you can sink yourself. I'll make everyone else look good.
That's awesome.
I mean, there's just some actors that, you may not be able to get through to. And I think that's like humanity. I'm not going to get along with everybody. I'm going to try my best.
But that's where your psychology comes in, right?
Yes. My psych. Yeah, definitely. That definitely helped me. Yeah.
Kristin, you've been giving a lot of thumbs up, so I want to give you a chance to talk. I would love to hear how you work with actors.
Well, I'm giving a lot of thumbs up because it's really kind of refreshing to hear people coming from different points of view with the same takeaway, And I think that eventually we all get to the same place where you get it. Working with actors, though, I think it's a very tricky thing. It's, as a costume designer, we are often, as a costume design department, the first ambassador from the film to talk to an actor. So I've been in that position hundreds and probably thousands of times to reach out to somebody and say, hey, I'm here calling from this movie. Let's talk about your character and let's see what you think about this. So that conversation is very, very natural to me. And, we can talk through things like very specific bits of backstory that are not in the movie or little evidence of their life that's not written in the script that they'd like to bring. All of those things are incredibly meaningful. I look at film as like a big picture. It's like, one department might be like the triangle in the orchestra, but I look at it as the big orchestra, right? So I know that's a very strange kind of metaphor, but but to the extent that like for every movie I've ever done, I've made like a mixtape because there's something about setting yourself in the headspace of what everybody is doing that is very helpful. So if you can share, and to your point, Anya, that if you can share, your sort of bits of inspiration and talk to them on a level that is about the work, but not about the work, it really helps because it provides that collaborative environment that people really need to feel heard and seen and acknowledged. And I think that that's really, really critical because I could tell you plenty of stories of people who don't want to play along And Anya, we probably worked with the same people. But you've got to find a way in to a space where they feel heard and where they feel acknowledged. And I think that is absolutely critical. And it's a skill.
And safe.
Yeah.
And then how particular are you with wardrobe? I guess that's something you zero in on.
Well, costumes, they tell you who a character is before they open their mouth. So Malcolm Gladwell wrote this book called Blink, and he talks about like the 2-second experience of like seeing somebody and within 2 seconds being able to tell all kinds of information about that person. So costumes are really critical to the introduction of a character, particularly, and then to their informing their arc as they go along. Yeah, I would never step on a costume designer's toes who's working for me, but I would certainly, and I've been working with people who have been working with me for a long time, so we have a shorthand. So it's just like boop, 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 and they go, and then they're off. So I would never step on anybody's toes creatively in that way, provided that we have an understanding of what we're aiming to achieve,
I'm not so nice. I literally, if I'm working with an AD that is not pulling their weight in a way that I need, I take over.
Right. But I think it's about hiring the person that is going to do a good job. I mean, I would never hire a costume person in whom I did not have ultimate faith. And, I've been in positions many times where there's been miscommunications or last minute changes or whatever, and it can be very frustrating. So I just try to hire the right person from the beginning. I think people are the most important component in making a film. You got to get the right crew, and then trusting the experience and trusting their abilities.
I totally agree. I just think in TV, you don't have a choice sometimes.
Yeah, TV totally different. And I completely feel you, because TV, you're really locked into a crew that you don't choose. But my experience has been with film, and in film, you can really choose. And in film, you can really twist people's arms to get favors for a short-term project. So hopefully,
nice.
Wait, can you expand on that favors thing?
Yeah.
Features? Are you talking about talk about the budget size of movies we're talking about?
Well, I've been doing this for a long time, and there are people who, I don't mean to say it in a kind of crass way, but people who would do favors for me because we're friends and because we have worked together and because I've done them favors. So I think there is a little tit for tat, and you can get really, really experienced, wonderful people to work for scale if it's only going to be for a few weeks or, a short amount of time on a movie where it's not, 6 or 8 months on a television show. Got it.
Yeah. It's not that different from calling your friends going, hey, I'm putting together a short film for my director's reel. I'm trying to jumpstart my career. Will you help me out?
Right. And I've worked with a lot of special effects and visual effects people over my career. And if I say, we just need you for 2 weeks, we don't need you for the whole show, just 2 weeks, can you come in and do this one thing? They're not going to, if we're friends and they are enthusiastic and excited about that, they will do it. And, I bake them cupcakes too, so that kind of helps. But baking skill, never underrate it. You know what I mean?
Never underestimate that.
That's correct. Yeah.
I'm going to make a note to buy a new masterclass on cooking now.
Now, let's talk about TV for a minute. So if you're walking into a TV show and you're getting your episode, the cast is in place, the crew is in place, what do you need to do first day on that set? Because you need to have authority, but I think you also probably need to be likable and collaborative and get along with people. How do you balance all of that? Anya's making a face. I don't know. Is any of that right?
I don't agree with everything you just said, because
tell me.
I think your first day on the job is not really landing there. When you book a job, you start watching those episodes, and you go to IMDb and you look at all the people who work on that show. And you're like, oh, I know the costume designer there. And I'll just call that costume designer up and be like, hey, I just booked an episode. Tell me about the cast. Tell me about the crew. Tell me about the line producer. And we directors do this all the time, by the way. We call each other, and after this, we're all going to stay in touch and look at each other and be like, oh my God, hey, remember we did that podcast? Hey, I'm doing a movie episode for whatever. Anyway, long story short, you get as much of you get as much intel possible before you even call somebody on that show to be like, hi, thanks for inviting me to your show. I'm your guest. And then you begin to start to like read the people in the room. And every single show is different. There are certain shows where they need a leader. They have no idea what they're doing because it's a first season show. They're still figuring the show out, and they really want someone to come in with a voice and help elevate the script. And then there are other shows where the period and the comma on the script are there for a reason, and you need to follow the words on the page. And there's nothing wrong with either versions, but you just need to know that you're a guest walking into that space. And I know some directors will disagree with me and go, well, no, I'm the director, and I want to come in and I want to put my fingerprint on the show, and my episode needs to look different. And that's cool. You will have one episode on that series that you got to do that. And then you will not be asked back to play in the sandbox again. And I use the word play very religiously because that's what we do. Like we play. We literally like get paid to show up and make believe on set. And it's awesome to have this opportunity. But you gotta play by the rules. And every show has different rules. So if I show up with authority and like, well, here's what I'm doing, and here's where we're gonna need a crane for like, no, it's not the show. You know, there are shows where like, no, this is a very simple, elegant show. It can't be too stylized. And there are other shows where they're like, hey, we're doing a sci-fi series for Netflix, and we kind of want to mimic this movie, or we want to lean into the style. And then in my experience, what I put together is like a deck, like a presentation like I would for a feature, and go, here's what I'm thinking. And I start showing them pictures from like the movie Alien and Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which is one of my favorite films. And they start going, oh, okay, we trust Avi now. He gets it, and he's elevating the script. And then they get out of your way. I don't like the word authoritative because it's so, you need to be so collaborative. You need to be inviting. And whether you disagree with somebody, you would ask them, and I steal this from Jon Favreau. I heard him say this on a podcast. If he doesn't have the answer, he goes, well, what would you do? And 9 times out of 10, he knows that their suggestion is going to be the one that they want to get behind and execute. And he's like, oh, let's do that. And I can't tell you how many times I've used that. It's like the oldest trick in the book now. Oh, well, what do you think we should do? That's great. Let's do that. And you're off.
Well, it's true because you're a visitor, right? Like those people, for example, I was just on The Expanse. 6 years, those people have worked together. Most of the crew is not cycled out because they love the show. So they're so much more invested than they ever think you could even be. So that, you really have to be aware of the crew. I also think like when you come in as a prepping director, the first part of your time when you step onto a show is not on the set. It is in the office, and it's with the production designer and the costume designer. And so after you've made all those calls, because Avi, I totally know, like they are priceless, those calls. But after you make those calls and you have all the information, you come into set and you need to slowly start showing your face around to everybody. It's really difficult during COVID because you're wearing a mask, but if you can get onto the stage, you want to go onto set and introduce yourself to people before you even start shooting so that people go, oh, okay, they're getting used to the idea. This is the next person coming in. This is what their energy feels like. This is who they are. I find that to be really helpful as opposed to just staying in the office, when I'm prepping. I like to get to know everybody.
To piggyback on what you just said, like during prep, I always try to go visit set. And I use the excuse of, oh, I'd like to go visit that actor who's working today on the call sheet. Because you get those little bubbles of time. Even sometimes it's your lunchtime during prep. I go to set under the guise of, it's actually not under the guise. I go to set to visit an actor, or if they only have one DP on the show, I want to go say hello. I want to go look at the location that they're filming at and see how they're lighting it. But the second you step on set, the whole crew already knows who you are. They're already smelling you. They're already looking you up and down going, I wonder if this guy's going to keep us here for 14
forever.
Is he going to show up with a plan? And by the way, you just go around and you say hello to the DIT guy. You say hello to the PAs, the script supervisor that you're going to be working closely with. And what you're actually doing is you're sort of like, you're introducing yourself to the family. And the second you walk off the set, they're already talking about you. Like, oh yeah, he kind of seems cool. Oh, this guy might be an asshole. He's going to keep us here long days.
You bet your book movie they've looked you up.
Oh my God.
They know you're in. They're like, oh, my grandma worked on this show that you were on, and she said X. Like, they know. These people are very aware.
Absolutely.
So you've hinted at this, but let's talk about how important networking is at this point in your career. Kristin, I'm going to give you a chance.
Yeah, I mean, this is the weird thing, right? So 20, 30 odd years in this business, I know a lot of people. And it's weird because the people that I met coming up have graduated into these sort of more executive levels. And it's odd to me that some of the people I worked closest with, shoulder to shoulder, we still haven't quite found a way to connect. So it is really important to not rest on your laurels and just be like, oh, well, I know everybody and like, it'll be fine. It's really mind expanding to meet new people and to have new people meet you. You know, we all learn a lot from each other. And I think that some of the most rewarding relationships that I've made over the last couple of years have been with brand new people that I would never have had the opportunity to meet. So it's super important. And I'm glad that I have good agent and manager who understand who I am and who understand, you know, kind of what I want to do. But there is that ease factor of like, and again, like looking people up, it's constant. Like, you know, you're going to Google whoever it is and they're going to Google you. And you just have to hope that they know somebody who likes you.
Yes.
Because if they know somebody who doesn't like you, then that might be a little problematic. And, you know, look, none of us are perfect. We've all stepped in piles of poo along the way. And you just hope that those piles of poo don't have friends who are important coming up in your future. I'm sorry. I don't know how to say it another way.
You said it very delicately. That was nice. Avi, Anya, do you have more to say about that?
Well, from the time I entered in this industry until now, I've networked. So, I mean, being a second or a trainee, I mean, just like Kristin, like you start at a level and most of the people you're with, you guys kind of move up kind of the same. Some of them are like crazy trajectories. And then the people that you're working with that quote unquote are above and below you too, like those people are moving. So you're always networking and it's important. I totally agree with Kristin in the fact that like, you know, some of the people that you meet, the newer people you meet, it's like, because you're at a different space, the energy is different and the connection is really fantastic. So that has definitely happened for me now that I'm directing, meeting other directors and creating, you know, support for each other and motivating each other at this level it's a different group of people than who I had coming up. But people I was around when I was coming up are now, you know, working at Disney or whatever. And so they know my name, just like Kristin was saying, like, you know a lot of people in the industry if you've been in it for a while. So what is left with them as you move through this world is your character, your work ethic, who you are. Those characteristics are what they will remember. So when you transcend to another position, even if they haven't seen what you've done, they know who you are. So it makes it easier for you to get in the door to them or for them to give you favors. I really have found that favors. When I say favors, I mean like, hey, I'd really love to talk to this person. You're connected and they're doing this show that I'd love to get on. Would you mind putting in a good word for me? Well, yes, they will. Maybe they haven't worked with me as a director, but they know that I have a good character, good work ethic, you know, and we had a great experience together. So that I found really helped propel my career as a director. It opened doors because people knew who I was as a person on the set.
And Anya, can I ask you a question? Because I have always felt like I had a certain inhibition to talk about the desire to direct while I was in this other position because we get pigeonholed so easily. Did you have that experience?
I felt like, well, when I decided I wanted to direct, so after I asked Mindy, I wasn't like saying to everyone I want to direct. I went and did something to show. And once I did that, then I let people know because my experience in this industry has been that people will help me if I tell them what I need. And that's often what I tell people when I'm on panels or mentoring people is like, you have to say what you want so that you can get it. You can't keep it close to your chest. So I have found it to be very helpful to say what I want, but I try not to be overly aggressive about it, because being a Black woman, being a woman, and not having a lot of experience, people have a lot of other things. I mean, initially when I started, people have a lot of other things going on. So I tried to do it as calculated as possible. That sounds a little nefarious, but yes, that's what I did.
There was a point where I was like, oh, if I start being vocal about directing, I'm going to stop getting calls for editing. And I was concerned about like, oh, would they call me again? But I also remember one of my professors from USC, he had like won an Oscar for a short film. And we became really close. Towards the end of graduation, I had like a very sobering talk with him where I was like, can I ask you honestly, like, why are you teaching and why aren't you out there working as a filmmaker? With all due respect. And he was like, oh, this is what I did wrong. I was a double hyphenate. I went and I labeled myself as a DP director for a long time. And so nobody wanted to hire a DP who was a wannabe director, or a director who was also DPing on the side, because they wanted the best director or the best DP. And it's really stayed with me over there. So when people ask me now, like, what do you do? It took a lot of courage for me to be like, I just direct now. And I've heard other directors say that too, who made that leap, whether they were a writer-director or a DP director, AD director. You just have to like sell yourself.
You have to cut the bait. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. I mean, like I stopped designing costumes with Conjuring 2. That was it in 2016. I've sold off my stock. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like I'm done. It's tough, because I think there's a part of you that's like, am I going to make enough money? Like, how am I going to do this? It's really hard. But I think you have to do it. If you don't have and let's just talk about the privilege of having worked in an industry where you can make a lot of money and save it, because that's something that's totally critical. And had I not achieved the level that I had, I would not have been in a financial place to be able to make this kind of a leap, which I think is really important to sort of point out. This is a sustained slog for me, because I'm not doing television and I didn't graduate from a level of like, I could not have asked the people at Sleepy Hollow, hey, can I direct an episode? Because they would have gone, ha, 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 right? Mm-hmm. So for me to do film, it's development doesn't pay. Those budgets don't exist anymore. So you got to hustle. And like, it's been a really challenging thing. It would have been impossible without the savings that I had from work,
It's so interesting, because I feel like I've had an easier time than you guys, because I was ADing on Blackish. I got my episode, and then I was going to go back and just direct again on Blackish. Like, that was kind of my thought. I was like, I'll go and direct again on Blackish and be the AD, and then just get an episode and build like that. Kind of like you were talking about, Avi. I guess you went back and forth, right? You were editing and then directing, right?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I didn't get another directing job right away. It was like, okay, wait another season, and you'll get another opportunity. And it took years to build up a stable list of credits.
Yeah, that for me, my experience was I did an episode, and then I randomly, because I joined a program called We for She, which is a director's program where they pair you with a working director and try to use that as a catalyst or a reason for someone to hire you as a first-time director, because that director that you're paired with will guarantee your work. So I was in this program and I got an agent from that. And because of that, I got a meeting for a show. Essentially what happened to me is I directed, the show went down, I got a meeting, and I got hired to do another show, even though I was expecting to go back as an AD. And so I had to make the choice. And again, speaking to your talk about finances, Kristin, I had to make the choice because Blackish was not going to let me come back and forth. So I chose to go to direct, and I didn't know if I was what was going to happen. I look at it for me as a leap of faith, right? Like it was like I just walked off a cliff and was like, okay, I hope I fly. I hope I sprout wings because, you know, I mean, obviously, all three of us had a profession we could go back to if we had to, which is kind of nice.
But man, for me anyway, it was just like once I said it,
yeah,
you know, like once I said it, I really couldn't go back.
Yeah, I mean, yes, agreed. I think it was something I told myself anyway. You know, like you'll be fine, and if you don't make it, you could go back to ADing. But you know, obviously, I was like one foot in front of the other. I gotta keep doing this.
I don't know if I answered your question, Julie, about like how important networking is. And I would say everything we've been talking about is important. It's like you have to sort of like cut the line and go, okay, I'm not a editor anymore, or an AD anymore, or costume designer anymore. But as an editor, I found it very appealing to go to a executive who wanted to hire me for, say, a pilot and say, hey, I'm directing now. I will help you on your pilot. I will help you if you support me in the same way I'm supporting getting this pilot on the air. I have a track record of getting pilots on the air, and I know you want to hire me for that reason, but I want you to help me boost my directing career. I wasn't shy about asking for that after my first initial gig, which is why I continued to edit while I directed. For a long time, I was like, oh, yeah, pilot season, I do have a slot open for 2 months. Yes, I'll cut your pilot. Just so you know, I have 3 other editing offers on the table for 3 other pilots. I will do yours if yours comes with a guaranteed direct one. And to me, it wasn't like mean-spirited in any way. The conversation was like, hey, I'd love to do this one, but I have this other offer on the table.
Yeah.
And it was a form of networking for me. I wasn't cutting off the editing. I wasn't closing the editing door saying, oh, I'm just a director now. I would say, yeah. I'm happy to continue that path, but I'm also on this other path, you know. I was changing lanes back and forth a lot. And for me, it was actually networking. Opener. Yeah, it was actually a networking strategy because I knew that a specific pilot was going, and I was like, oh, that would be good for my directing. As an editor, it would just be another paycheck, but that would be cool if So I would have people reach out and put me up for the job. I would meet with them, and if they were interested in hiring me and I had leverage, I would actually coordinate with my manager and my agent to be like, all right, why don't we say yes? In fact, take a lower fee to get this in writing and get a guarantee that they'll give me a directing slot that goes. And it paid off.
So, Avi, is your manager and agent, are they the same for editing as directing?
My current manager was my editorial agent for many years.
Oh, wow.
So when I transitioned, and God bless him, he knew, like, okay, I don't have the resources because I only do below the line. Let's find you an agent who can help you, and I'll manage that side of it because I've been in the industry for 40 plus years. He's going to hear this and be like, I'm not that old. He's not that old. Maybe this will be my way of checking to see if he listens to this podcast. So as far as, honestly, to me, it's still networking. And if during COVID, there was a time where I was like, yeah, you know what, I would edit something right now. I'm kind of sitting around bored. I checked the ego at the door, and if there's something available, I would have happily dove in. But I also saw that as a form of networking, to work with like a crew of people I haven't worked with, or a studio or network. Like, I think there's still, it's just work, and I still get to play, you know?
Okay, so real quick, Anya and Kristin, do you have agents? Do you have managers? What kind of representation?
I have an agent, and I have a lot of team. I have agent and managers. Yes.
And a lawyer, I imagine?
I have an agent. I have a manager. I just recently got a lawyer. I have a business manager. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I have a lot of people. The advice I would give as you're moving through this is really think about what you need, because you may not need everything.
Right.
Is all I'm saying.
I have an agent, manager, lawyer. And I was really, to your point, Anya, like wondering, like, do I need all of them? And my answer to myself was yes. Starting from nothing, needing to really transition and shift gears. And I'm so, so grateful for my team because they have worked really hard. I mean, as a woman trying to break into the boys' club of scary movies, There is no way that I would have been able to open the doors on my own, even with my street cred in that genre. No way. So, grateful for them.
Okay, I think this brings us to our martini shot, as you will know, is our last shot of the day. So we want to hear kind of your parting words, either the best piece of advice you have for someone just getting in, or something that someone else that you work with on set does to really help you do your job. Just what's the thing you would leave us with?
I would like to tell people who want to get into this that, especially features, it can take a long time, and it is very difficult, and it is a roller coaster ride. And just when you've sold a project to the studio, that rug can get ripped right out from underneath you. So don't do your end zone dance until the movie is out. Try not to, right? Okay. Try not to, celebrate all the small victories in whatever way that you like, because I think it's important to recognize that and to keep yourself going. But also try to keep it in mind that these things, it's all ephemeral, really, like you have a studio deal in place, your lawyer has drafted your contract, everything's signed and ready to go, and then and it's gone. So, there's got to be a little bit of balance there. And so that's number one piece of advice. And number two piece of advice is save every dollar you can before you decide to start doing this kind of thing, because you're going to need it. That's all I'm going to say.
Anya, do you want to go?
Let people know what you want, because people want to help you, but have a direction and where you want to go. Don't be like, I want to direct. That's not going to, if you come and tell me that, I'm not going to help you. But if it's like, I want to direct comedies and I've done this thing and how do I do X? I can help you. You have to be very targeted in telling people what you want. Just know that. But I was going to say on set, I think one of the people that helps me the most when they're really good is the on-set dresser. So I would just throw that out there. Like when you have an incredibly good on-set dresser who's like standing behind you, paying attention to the frame, thinking about things and thinking about the script and the story with you, it can be really great because they are amazing. They're not just picture hangers, So that's what I would say. Yeah.
The best piece of advice I ever got was from a director who was directing like $100 million movies for Universal for a long time. And he was gracious to take me and 3 other film students out to lunch. And he said the following: it's okay to say you don't have the answer. It's always better to say, I don't know, but we're going to figure it out. And come at it with like a really passionate energy, and people will gravitate towards that. And he credited his career because he was in a pitch at Universal on this movie, and the studio executives were all hung up on this one thing that they had been trying to crack for, 2-3 years of development hell. And in the room, he was like, I don't know, but we'll figure it out. Because he didn't know the answer. He's like, I don't know, but that's just one of the many things we're going to figure out together. And he got the job, and $1 billion today, I'm sure. And I've always used that. Sometimes I'd be in a production meeting and all eyes are on me. And they're like, well, what are we going to do about that? I just go, I don't know yet. Let's sidebar and we'll have a conversation about it. Let's move on. And people go, okay. You can't do that with every question that's being thrown at you as a director. You'll get in trouble real quickly. But people appreciate it. And if you're the first person to say, okay, guys, production meeting's wrapped, let's get to that sidebar and let's discuss that thing that came up. It's cool. And don't be afraid to ask for help and go, I don't know. Honestly, the first time I directed, I wanted to prove that I was this editor who was coming in and he knew how everything worked. And I stumbled and I tripped and I fell on my face many times. And it would have been so much easier to go, hey, what kind of crane do we need to order? Instead of, let's get the super techno crane, or whatever I said at the time. I just remember being on set one day going, oh shit, I ordered the wrong crane. And it was because I didn't ask. That was it.
That's great. This has been the most fun. Thank you so much, Anya Adams, Kristin Burke, and Avi Youabian. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, guys.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Catch a Break. We'd like to thank our guests, Avi Youabian, Kristin Burke, and Anya Adams. And special thanks to Alternative Rentals for their support. Alternative Rentals is a premier cinema camera house that supplies digital camera equipment to high-profile scripted TV shows, feature films, and commercials across the nation. With offices in both Los Angeles and Atlanta, Alternative Rentals is committed to providing their clients a 5-star experience in all budget ranges. And also special thanks to Groovy, reinventing the playing field in entertainment worldwide. Find them at groovy.com. Please check out our website at catchabreakpodcast.com and follow us on all the social media. Catch a Break is produced in partnership with Catchlight Films, Rose Colored Pictures, and the Other 50%, and edited by Lasta Drakovic. Our theme music, Mantra for a Struggling Artist, was composed by Andrew Jocelyn. That's a wrap on Season 3 of Catch a Break. Please keep in touch and let us know how it's going and what you'd like to hear on a future season. We hope this helps you to catch a break. We're grateful that you listen, and see you next time.